everyone, this is John Daly. I'm here again with Bernie Goldberg for another episode of the No BS Zone. How's it going today, Bernie?
So far, so good, John. How about you?
I'm doing good, thanks. So today we're going to talk about a number of topics, beginning with the uptick in public disruptions created by climate activists and anti-Israel activists that we're seeing here in the United States. It's overseas too, but we're seeing a lot of it here. And we're not talking about traditional protests where people are holding up signs and chanting slogans and that type of thing. We're talking about people sitting down in the middle of freeways and blocking traffic, destroying or trying to destroy fine art that's hanging in museums. There was a video this past week that got a lot of attention. A climate group tried to storm the stage, or they did storm the stage at an event for Senator Lisa Murkowski. And you had these disruptors and the event coordinators kind of grappling and pushing, and eventually the whole heap of these people toppled upside down off the stage. It was really sort of ugly to look at. Bernie, these stunts obviously do generate attention. They make it on the news, and we're talking about them today. But do they ever actually help the cause that these protesters are trying to advance?
I think just the opposite, actually. They are so convinced that their cause is so important to them, at least to them, that it ought to be important to you and to everybody else. And if it isn't as important to you and everybody else as it is to them, they will, as you say, block a highway, block a bridge, throw paint on an iconic a masterpiece of art, at least try to. It's covered with glass, thank goodness. But even if it were not covered with glass, they would throw paint on the Mona Lisa because something is important to them. So the short answer to your question is no, it doesn't help them at all. But here's the thing politically, these people, at least the ones who are out there demonstrating in favor of Palestinian rights, against Israel, in some cases pro-Hamas and anti-Jewish, they will be in Chicago this summer. Guarantee it. They will be in Chicago and it will be a riot. I'm using that as a figure of speech. It may literally be a riot, but I don't know that it's going to be 1968 all over again with police swinging batons, but it will not do any good for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party.
I think you're probably right about that. We had talked about this several months ago, and you had sort of predicted that. I was a little more skeptical just because I didn't know how long, the Israel offensive was going to last. I figured if it didn't last that long, by the time of the convention, people wouldn't be talking about it or thinking about it. But no, I think you're exactly right. It's funny because I just the broader topic that we're talking about, I personally can't think of a single time in my life where I saw a bunch of people acting like, angry, obnoxious jackasses as a form of political protest, and then thought to myself, wow, these people may be onto something. We should really listen to what they have to say. And I just, like you said, I think it does the opposite. What it tells me is that these people are serious, potentially dangerous, and they should be condemned. And I think they should be condemned not just by people like you and me, but like people who believe in their cause. I think people should be policing the nuts on their side of the argument. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Nixon went to China because he was Nixon. If McGovern had won, he couldn't have gone to China. And if he did, they'd call him a communist. In the same way, this is not a stretch what I'm about to say. In the same way, if liberals and progressives speak out against it, it means a lot more than if conservatives speak out against it. And I don't hear a lot coming from that side of the issue. I don't see other people who think climate is a serious issue saying, stop it, don't do this. I don't see people who think that there's a legitimate discussion to be had about the Middle East and the war in Gaza saying, we're not with you when you call for intifada, and when you say Israel has no right to exist, and when you threaten and intimidate Jewish students on campus. As a matter of fact, there's a headline on TV on the graphic underneath, Biden condemns anti-Semitic students or anti-Semitism. Yes, he said, I condemn it, but he said it when a reporter yelled out a question as he was walking away. Do you condemn anti-Semitism on campus? And he said, yes, I do. And I also condemn people who don't understand what's going on in the Palestinian situation. That's not the same as Joe Biden making a statement from a podium in the White House saying, I condemn anti-Semitism. If the reporter didn't yell out the question, he wouldn't have yelled out an answer. And that's something that's important also. You need it coming from a moral authority, and the president, at least the office of the president, is a moral office. And Joe Biden has been unduly and unnecessarily quiet about the issue of what's going on our college campuses. In my opinion, of course.
No, I think there is one exception on the Democratic side, big exception. I think Senator John Fetterman, who has been fantastic.
Fetterman is the exception. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, he deserves a lot of praise. I mean, we had a lot of people were critical on the right of him, when he was running. I was more concerned with his health than anything else at the time because of the stroke. But yeah, he has, I think, surprised a lot of people. It's interesting to see so many on the right now championing that guy, and I think it's great that he's speaking out.
Joe Biden, and I've used this analogy before, is walking a tightrope. On the one hand, his White House issues a statement condemning anti-Semitism, a statement. Joe Biden never spoke out about it until earlier this week, when the reporter yelled out the question. He's trying to please the progressive wing of his party, which increasingly is becoming bigger and bigger and more important in his party. And on the other hand, he's trying not to alienate older, more traditional Democrats. When you walk a tightrope, one false step and you're finished. And I think Biden is walking a tightrope right now, and it's a very dangerous position to be in.
Yep. So the next topic has to do with the former NPR senior editor, Yuri Berliner. Bernie, you wrote what I believe was a very strong piece on Monday about the parallels between his situation at NPR and yours with CBS many years ago. People should definitely read that column. I wanted to look at that comparison today from a little different angle. Some people may not know this, but I monitor your social media presence much more closely than you do. And one thing that I've noticed is that whenever this kind of story unfolds, it happens from time to time, where there is a mainstream journalist who sounds the alarm on liberal bias. We've seen this with Cheryl Atkinson, Lara Logan, Barry Weiss, and now with Yuri Berliner. There are a good number of people on the left who argue that your name keeps coming back up, you and these other people are not sincere in what you're saying about the media, and instead that you guys are these professional opportunists who realize that you could get a big book deal out of presenting yourselves as whistleblowers and become New York Times best-selling authors and make lots of money as Fox News correspondents. Bernie, is that what's going on here? The last 28 years of your professional life been one big hoax that I and lots of others have fallen for?
These people are idiots. And and it's only because of you, John, who are far more civil than I am, I would say these people are effing idiots. When I wrote Bias, I quit CBS News to write Bias. Every publisher in Manhattan turned the book down. If one publisher in Washington had also turned it down, I don't know where I'd be today. So I had no foresight that writing a book about bias would be a hit. I had no idea. I had no reason to have any idea. I'd never written a book before in my life. So the idea that, well, I quit CBS and I wrote a book about bias because that made me a lot of money, that this was a planned strategy. Anybody who thinks that is a moron. It's that simple. And by the way, while we're on the subject, when I criticize the right because of their bias, I get called names from so-called conservatives. They're not really conservatives. They're right-wing idiots. Right-wing idiots call me names if I criticize their side, and left-wing idiots criticize me when I criticize their side. But the idea, and by the way, I had no idea, zero idea, that there were things on the web, on social media, saying these things about me. I will tell the audience, I asked John to send me a list because I needed to see it. It is so hilariously freaking stupid. My next column, which will go up in a few days, will show you how many people have said how many stupid things. I don't know what I'm going to write in the beginning of the column or after the column, but in the middle is going to be a long list of moronic statements from liberals about my motives for writing bias. God forbid it could be because I thought there was a problem with bias in the media, and I thought the media was an important institution in America, and I needed to write about that. Well, that couldn't possibly be. So here, a short message to all the people who are not listening to this because they don't subscribe to our website. But if they did, I'd say, screw you, every single one of you, idiot morons.
No,
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I sent you. You probably were surprised by how many of these comments I sent you, and they were just a small
I was
portion.
shocked.
Yeah, it's just, and that's one of the good advantages for you not being on social media. You miss a lot of idiocy that I see and that I send to you. But it's, yeah, like you said, you took these huge professional risks back then. And because you ultimately landed on your feet, and enjoyed the success after CBS, these people seem to think it was a big plan all along. And it's silly. There's a lot of these people that believe that. And I'll just add one more thing. If there are anybody that have doubts about this, Bernie, if you were truly an opportunist with the aim of making lots of money in the right-wing media, if that was your motivator, you would have become a hardcore Trump fan in 2016 and never looked back. You would have sounded like Dobbs.
I'd still be on Fox making a lot of money if that were the case.
No, that's true. And
let me thank the liberal idiots for one thing. They at least remembered that before Yuri Berliner of NPR, there was Bernie Goldberg of CBS. A lot of people who are covering the Yuri Berliner story in the mainstream media make no reference to the fact that what Yuri is talking about now, I was talking about 28 years ago. And when I see it, I don't lose any sleep. I want to be very clear about that. But I sort of shake my head and I say, are you aware that I said the same thing in 1996 in the Wall Street Journal in an op-ed? It's a parallel. He was with the company for 25 years. I was with CBS for 24 years at the time. He wrote about his own company and liberal bias. I wrote about my own company. And when you see the story on Fox or CNN or the New York Times, they make no reference to the fact that Yuri Berliner is not the first person to do this. So I thank the idiots on social media who at least remembered me. Thank you. Thank you, for you morons.
I think on the left they do it because they try to prove that to show this guy's an outlier. He must be the weirdo, without going back and going back to you and the people that have happened since then. So yeah, it's this whole new thing. And I think that Fox News probably won't mention it because of the reason that you're no longer on Fox. The reason that they let your contract expire is because you were telling the truth there, as well on the Fox Airways.
I wrote a country song once just for myself, and there's a line in it that says, telling the truth will get you in a lot more trouble than telling a pack of lies. Think about that. I will immodestly say, I think that's a great observation. Telling the truth will get you in a lot more trouble than telling a pack of lies. If I had told a pack of lies and said what Donald Trump did was no big deal, I think he's frankly, I think he's the greatest president in the history of the United States, greater than Lincoln, greater than Washington. Just I'd still be on Fox pulling in a paycheck. I told the truth about Donald Trump, and Fox did what it had every right to do, which was not renew my contract. I am not making, and I'm a capitalist. They can do anything they want. It's a free country. But the idea, and thank you for mentioning it, John, the idea that I say things in order to make money, I'd say other things to make a lot more money.
That's right. That's right. So I'll switch gears a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Donald Trump trial in New York. It's currently going on. This is the one over the Stormy Daniels case, the hush money stuff. Bernie, we've talked about this before, and I think the two of us are in agreement that the New York indictments against Trump were a little dubious in that they involved some legal gymnastics and were pretty clearly politically motivated, I believe. But anyway, jury selection took place last week, and some in the right-wing media were apparently interested in being part of that process, the jury selection. We had a radio host, Clay Travis, told his followers, quote, "If you're a Trump supporter in New York who is part of the jury pool, do everything you can to get seated on the jury and then refuse to convict as a matter of principle, dooming the case via hung jury." And he says this is the most patriotic thing you can do. And you had Fox News's Jesse Waters, one of your personal favorites, Bernie, was broadcasting some pretty detailed information on the jurors, along with his expert thoughts on which of these jurists may have it out for Trump. Apparently, there was enough information being put out there that one of the jurors actually asked to be excused from the case because her friends and family figured out it was her and were tainting her views on the case. Bernie, what do you think about this? Is this sort of thing, is this jury tampering in a sense, or is this just fair game opinion commentary based on public?
Let me answer it from a journalistic point of view. Jesse Waters, who you refer to, is not a journalist. He's a circus clown. He said, without a shred of evidence, that liberal activists are lying to get on the jury. Okay? Liberal activists are his words. Even opinion journalists, as I've said many, many times, have to be fair. You can't just make something up, which is what he did. How does he know if liberal? Now, that may be true. I'm not saying it's not true. It may be, but I don't have any evidence that it's true, and neither does he. So that's one thing. As for the trial itself, I personally think Donald Trump had a sexual liaison with Stormy Daniels, despite what he says. I think he paid her off to keep her mouth shut, despite what he says. I think there was a bookkeeping thing, despite what and I think and I don't care. And I don't care about any of it. I think it's a totally BS case that was brought by a political activist DA. And I think this is a big, big mistake. And I don't think it's going to hurt Donald Trump one way or the other. And I'll say one other thing. Can he theoretically get a fair trial in Manhattan? Yeah. Do I think he can? Realistically, I think it'd be very, very difficult in a city where 85% of the people voted for Joe Biden and about 14 or 15% for Donald Trump, and where he is poison in the minds of many New Yorkers. Do I think he's going to get a fair trial? No. Do I think the judge should have recused himself? Yes, I do. Just for appearance's sake, because he's a liberal Democrat. His daughter is a progressive Democrat working for other. I'm not saying these are legal grounds for recusal. They're not. But I think the whole trial is a mess. And I think Donald Trump has a right to be annoyed about it, even though I think he's guilty of what he's charged with. I have a question for you, and you don't, let me say, John doesn't know this question is coming, so I don't know where we're going with this. Did Stormy Daniels ask for money Or did they go to Stormy Daniels and say, we'll give you money if you shut up about this? Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know for sure. I was always under the impression that they came to her recognizing this was an issue, or maybe, yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. I don't know for sure if she initiated contact and then it went from there. I think Trump's team clearly saw this as a political liability going into the election, and then that's why they moved from there. But I don't remember offhand. That's a good question. I'll have to look into that.
Well, if they went to her, okay. If she went to them, that, I'm not accusing her of anything, but that could be a case of extortion. If somebody says, give me $130,000 or I'm going to talk about what we did, and that'll hurt you at home and politically, you can't do that. But since she hasn't been charged, I'm assuming they went to her and said, here's some money, just keep your mouth shut. And, you know, I'm not sure I blame them for doing that.
Yeah, I would think that if that had happened, where she had sort of posed that to Trump, we would have heard about that all over the place on Fox News and everywhere else. You know, the extortion angle. I never have, so I assume that's not what happened. But yeah, that would be worth looking into for sure.
Yeah, I assume what you assume.
Yeah, I don't think that's what happened, but I'd have to look back into it. Let's go ahead and move on to the last topic, Bernie. We'll try and make this a little fast since we're probably running a little long. Bernie, you wanted to talk about the topic of lying. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden say a lot of things that aren't true. I would say even more than the average politician. And their supporters don't ever really seem to care. They're largely fine with the lies and that type of thing. Therefore, makes it challenging at times for commentators like you and I to persuade such people of anything. Bernie, you said in an email to me that you're not even going for persuasion anymore. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not. I just put my opinions out there. People are free to agree with them or disagree with them, but I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, mainly because I don't think minds are changeable these days. Bill O'Reilly just wrote a column about this, and he said what I've been saying for quite some time. Let me just read you a little bit. He said, this is from Bill O'Reilly. When I was young and foolish, I used to try to persuade folks I felt were misguided. It rarely worked. The truth is that most people build protective barriers around themselves and rarely stray from the comfort that it provides. It's all about the tribe. If you're surrounded by conservatives, you tend to go that way. Liberals do the same thing. Most humans crave acceptance. So I don't think we change. Let's put it this way. When Joe Biden lies, and he lies a lot, his people don't care because they don't care. Trump lies all the time. His people don't care. Let me make a point connecting this with the trial. Two people running for the office of the President of the United States are free to lie in order to gain an advantage and win the White House. It's not against the law. They can lie and lie and lie, and they could do it without any fear of prosecution. And that's the way it ought to be. But let's be clear, they're lying in order to gain advantage. But if Donald Trump lies about a bookkeeping matter, then he can go to jail for 2,000 years. Something is not right about this. If you can lie on the campaign trail, and I just made a quick note that Joe Biden has a campaign ad out in which he says Donald Trump said there'd be a bloodbath if he loses. Everybody by now should know that he said there'd be an economic bloodbath if we let too many cars, foreign cars, into this country. But Joe Biden didn't say that in his political ad. He said Donald Trump says there'd be a bloodbath. And then he perpetuates the biggest lie that just doesn't go away, that Donald Trump said there are good people on both sides in Charlottesville. He said what Donald Trump said, there are good people who want the statue of Robert E. Lee left up, and there are good people who want it taken down. Okay, That's not the same as saying neo-Nazis are good people and other non-neo-Nazis are good people. Joe Biden lies to gain advantage, just as Donald Trump lies to gain advantage. And you can do that, and you can get away with it. And if you're really successful, you can win the presidency. But if you lie about a bookkeeping matter and saying it was to pay my attorney when it was really to pay off a porn star, then you could be found guilty of a felony. Sorry. I'm all for law and order, but I'm not buying that crap. That is just nonsense to me.
It's interesting when I see people who sort of defend the lies, whether it's of Donald Trump or Joe Biden, is no big deal. I always see people saying, well, politicians have always lied. This isn't anything new. I mean, yeah, politicians have long been dishonest, but it's so much more brazen than it is now. And just to sort of give an example of that, years ago when Mitt Romney was running against Barack Obama, we remember Harry Reid coming out and just making up this complete lie about Romney not paying his taxes for 10 years. It was just a bald-faced lie. That was a big deal at the time to us people on the right. That was this huge thing. But now this is just a daily thing. I mean, lies of that magnitude are just kind of casually tossed out all the time. And it's for me, you know, and you're the same way. The facts are important. They matter more than whatever preferred narrative is out there. Just from a personal perspective, I have had people, believe it or not, including on this website on rare occasions, albeit, I do hear from people that said, in fact, I did persuade them, something I wrote, at least on a certain issue, maybe not on a big ideological view, but when I do hear that, it does mean a lot to me. And it is frustrating how so many people today accept and even embrace the lies and repeat them, and whenever it's convenient to do so. If the truth is more convenient, that's what they'll be, but that's what they'll cling to. But I think this trend, you know, is largely quite negative for American culture. So I always feel it's my responsibility as an opinion columnist to put my stuff out there, still try to persuade people, even though it may not work. But just be honest, base my opinions on facts. And I think I'm not going to make a huge amount of money doing this. We talked about that earlier. The way to make a lot of money is to go on and just become a sycophant for, you know, a politician. But I think there is no ability to just being honest and trying to base your opinions and facts.
Well, just let me repeat, I'm not trying to persuade. I'm trying to put out my opinion. If I do persuade, that's icing on the cake, but that's not my intent. I want to repeat something I said. We understand that politicians lie. That's hardly breaking news. But they lie for a reason. They lie to tear down the other guy and win the presidency in this case. That's acceptable in our culture. But it's not acceptable to lie about paying off. It's not. You can pay off a porn star. That's not illegal, but it's somehow illegal to pretend in your bookkeeping for your business records to say it was a legal expense when it was really hush money to keep her quiet because that she might influence the election. See, Stormy Daniels isn't allowed to influence the election, but somehow Donald Trump is allowed to lie about Joe Biden, and Joe Biden's allowed to lie about Donald Trump. That's perfectly acceptable. I don't know if anybody is getting my point, but it's really an important one from my selfish point of view, that lying is okay to win the White House if you're a politician, but you can't say you're paying somebody for this when you're paying them for that, because that could get you sentenced to prison. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, sort of the political system versus the legal system. A lot of inconsistencies there for sure. Well, that seems like
while I'm against what Travis, what's his name, Clay Travis said about, you know, get in there, get on the jury, and all that, and try to throw the verdict. I hope Donald Trump's not convicted. I really do, even though I think he did what he's accused of doing, I want to be clear. I think he did what he's accused of doing, and I hope he's not convicted, because I think Alvin Bragg brought this case for political reasons. I think Donald Trump is absolutely correct about that.
All right. Well, that's a good place to end it, I believe. Bernie, thanks for doing this as usual. I want to thank all of our subscribers there. We've been getting a lot of new ones lately. Thank you. I think thanks in part to Bernie's recent appearance on Bill O'Reilly's show. So
Yeah, I want to thank all those people for coming over. A lot of people who watched me on O'Reilly recently came over, and we really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
absolutely. And for those of you, those new subscribers, maybe seeing this show for the very first time and seeing some of the other features on BernardGoldberg.com, we do Bernie does a Friday Q&A. So if you have any questions for that Q&A, leave them in the comment section below this video today, and we'll get them added. And people ask me some questions sometimes, but Bernie's the headliner, of course. So we appreciate everybody that's coming aboard here, and hope you all have a great day. And Bernie, I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, John. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.